Former New York Mayor and Donald Trump toady Rudy Giuliani has admitted in court essentially to lying about two black election workers in Georgia as part of a defamation suit filed by said former election workers. Now, following the 2020 election, Giuliani claimed that Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Shea Moss had tampered with ballots in the 2020 presidential election count in Georgia, essentially counting extra votes for Joe Biden. That's the allegations, and they passed around supposedly nefarious video of them doing that, which was again entirely debunked. There was no evidence of having, of them having any sort of nefarious intent, or doing anything that the right wing had claimed that they were doing. Now, in a court filing on Tuesday, former mayor of New York conceded that he had made these statements and had them published to third parties, but said that such an admission would not change his argument that they were constitutionally protected and had not adversely affected the workers concerned. So again, this is all part of a defamation suit. So he's trying to do like the legal angle of, well, okay, yes, sure, I put I put out these false statements, but free speech, and by the way, it doesn't rise to the level of defamation because they weren't injured by my statements. Oh, now Giuliani did not contest that to the extent that the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable, such actionable factual statements were false. Fancy way of saying I lied. So again, look at the argument, right? Yeah, sure, I lied. But the lies, again, I'm allowed as a United States citizen under the First Amendment to lie. And it's, even though you're not, again, supposed to defame people, he's claiming that my lies, my knowing lies about these people didn't actually harm them, so it doesn't rise to the level of defamation, as I explained. So now that's a ridiculous argument because he's essentially telling us to believe that him and Donald Trump, telling millions of megachuds that these two black women helped steal the election for Biden didn't lead to any harm. I find that very hard to believe. I find that very, very hard to believe. And again, he admits that, yeah, I knew that this was false. I knew that there was no evidence. But I lied about them anyway. But it's okay though, because it didn't hurt them. No, it did hurt them. Moss and Freeman faced untold amounts of harassment after these lies spread by Giuliani and Trump got out there. Okay? The former president of the United States, somebody who had tens of millions of votes, by the way, legitimate votes. Millions of people voted for tens of millions have voted for Donald Trump. And so let's not be, let's be pretty clear about that, right? He's got a gigantic platform, and he used it to target two innocent election workers and said, these are the people, terrible people, the worst people. They stole the election from me. I would have won if it hadn't been for them in Georgia. If it hadn't been for all these other people, these very, very bad actors that stole the election from me. Let Joe Biden win the election. Yeah, no, okay, that's what he's saying though. And Giuliani wants us to believe that all of that and the harassment that it brings had no negative effect in these women's lives. Really? Nobody buys that argument. Nobody in their right mind could ever buy that argument. That, oh no, this massive lies spread all across all these different platforms to people the same kinds of people who went and attacked the Capitol on January 6th. The same kinds of people. All right? Same belief in the big lie. Didn't have any negative impact on these two election workers' lives. Were literally singled out by name and spread the videos of them and their names, everything all across right-wing social media.
Bullshit.
It's all it's complete and utter bullshit. You want to know the impact? Well, let's listen to the impact of this in these ladies' own words.
A lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920. That's, yeah.
Were a lot of these threats and vile comments racist in nature?
A lot of them were racist. A lot of them were just hateful.
I get nervous when I bump into someone I know in the grocery store who says my name. I'm worried about who's listening. I get nervous when I have to give my name for food orders. I'm always concerned of who's around me. I've lost my name and I've lost my reputation.
I no longer give out my business card. I don't transfer calls. I don't want anyone knowing my name. I haven't been anywhere at all. I've gained about 60 pounds. I just don't do nothing anymore. I don't want to go anywhere. I second guess everything that I do.
That right there, again, that sounds like somebody who's been through an incredibly traumatic experience or many traumatic experiences. And look, it's not just that, but like they had to, it's not just like threats, threatening phone calls, threatening emails, all that stuff, which is already like terrible. They also literally had people show up to their house. Not just show up to their house, show up to their mom's house, show up to their grandma's house, right? Show up there, and it caused them to eventually have to even move away from their homes from all this harassment. They had people literally trying to come up to them and arrest them, to do citizens arrests. Okay? And now remember the last time, and this is especially horrifying for black people, because the last time I remember somebody trying to do a citizen's arrest of a black man, it ended with the death of Ahmaud Arbery, who was just jogging. Okay? That was a modern day lynching. And these two women, it's not a stretch to say that that could have happened to them as well. And it's all because of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani's lies that they knew were not true. And he's out there admitting it. Finally, Rudy Giuliani had to admit it.
Oh my God, he admitted.
Not, and by the way, that's not saying that now that he admits it, the chuds will suddenly come to their senses and go, oh, yeah, turns out I was wrong. I owe these fine women an apology. No, it's never gonna happen, right? And look, even in their admission, Rudy Giuliani's legal team comes around and spins it. In fact, you also have his political advisor, Ted Goodman, telling Newsweek, quote, Giuliani did not acknowledge the statements were false, but did not contest it. Oh, in order to move onto the portion of the case that will permit a motion to dismiss. Oh, you see, he didn't admit it, but he didn't contest it either. Yeah, he just wants to move forward. Yes, that's right. Move forward. Yeah, this is a legal issue, he says, not a factual issue. Those out to smear the mayor are ignoring the fact that the stipulation is designed to get the legal issues of the case. Oh, you see, it is Rudy Giuliani that is in fact the real victim here. Yeah, no, blow it out your ass. Seriously. Giuliani, not a real victim here. The victims of a smear job are these two ladies, these two women, who did nothing but do their constitutional duty. They didn't have to. It's not like they weren't getting paid as election workers, as far as I can tell. Okay, I know some election workers, election officials do get paid, but they're volunteer election officials as well. They were just doing their job. That's it. In fact, the final report by the Secretary of State for Georgia, released back in March, stated that interviews with election workers who were present that night, including Freeman and Moss, gave consistent accounts of how absentee ballots were processed and were consistent with the actions observed on CCTV footage, the footage that went viral on right-wing media. It also noted that the two election observers, who were members of the Georgia Republican Party, had written affidavits that gave similar accounts to those of the election workers. There was no plot. There was no deep state chicanery. Unless apparently those Republican workers were also in on it. No. There's a fraud and no basis to the lies that Giuliani and Trump were peddling that ended up upending the lives of not just these women. These are just two of the most visible examples. But you have so many election workers across the country who were targeted by the same right-wing mob, this conspiracy-minded mob that goes after people because Donald Trump, let's be very clear, Donald Trump, Giuliani, and right-wing media point at them and say, it's their fault, instead of taking personal responsibility for their own losses. These two women and everyone else involved, everyone else has been victimized by this. They deserve justice, and Rudy Giuliani deserves to pay.